Hello, this is Raghav's take, first one in 2025, and I thought it's the done thing to make New Year resolutions. So I thought we'll start this one as the New Year resolutions, not for me, not for you, but for India, the country all of us love. What are those 9 New Year 2025 resolutions that India should be making, institutions of India should be making, so we can end up resuscitating our democracy? Why do I say resuscitating? Because I think our democracy has faltered in the previous few years and nothing much has been done to resuscitate it. Hopefully these 9 resolutions that I am going to talk about will do that. The first 3 resolutions out of these 9 are for the Election Commission of India, because I think that's the most critical body today. If the sanctity of India's elections is not preserved, is not reasserted, then frankly no democratic process can claim to be unblemished. So the first resolution is that we will do a 100% count of all VVPATs so that we can match 100% the results that the EVMs, the electronic voting machines, give. Now I know that the Election Commission, the Supreme Court of India, the government of India, everyone's against this. But my question is why? If people are expressing doubts, and if this one-time exercise of 100% VVPAT count can eliminate the doubts, can create confidence, then why not? The only argument against it is an argument that it's going to take time. Well, there are several ways in which you can address that problem. You can, for instance, have barcodes on every VVPAT, and then that makes the counting quicker, that makes the counting more scientific, and therefore that objection sort of goes away. The other objection is the fact that it's going to cost a lot. Cost a lot. I mean, the extra cost is chump change compared to the benefits that will accrue when there are no more doubts about the EVMs and our electoral process. Therefore, I think the first resolution needs to be in 2025, for every election, we will do a 100% VVPAT count. The second resolution for the Election Commission of India is really to make the whole process of updating electoral rolls completely robust, completely transparent. How do you do that? Well, simple. If you've created a new electoral roll for this election, please publish it electronically, completely, and then publish the previous one for that very booth. So any political party has got 2 electoral lists, one for this 2 electoral lists per booth, one for this election, one for the previous election. All they need to do is run an AI algorithm, do the matching, the mismatches will get thrown up, and if in that mismatch you detect some names that have been wrongly deleted or some names that are suspicious and have been added, the political parties should be allowed to go to the Election Commission and say, please give us the underlying records, Aadhaar cards or any other ID that you use to authenticate this voter. The electoral lists will be cleaned up, and that shadow of doubt will also go away. And of course, there's one more thing. The rule book says that if somebody is voting after the polls have closed at 5 p.m., the rule book says you will video record the whole process of post-poll closing voting. Now, the Election Commission has recently said we cannot share these video records. Why? Why? If we are going to be transparent about it, we should record these videos, and we should transparently share them with anybody who's got a doubt, or with a court of law which is examining some petition. So let's resolve to do that. Let's resolve to do that as our second resolution for the Election Commission. The third and the final resolution for the Election Commission. A lot of experts are saying that there is one problem in the way the EVM and in the way the EVM is sequenced. For instance, you have the ballot unit where you and I go and press the button. Then there is the VVPAT unit where we can see whether the button that we pressed for which candidate and which party, that same party shows up in the VVPAT. And then there is the control unit where the vote is actually counted. Now, a lot of experts say that the VVPAT is a bit vulnerable. It's a vulnerable link in this chain because the VVPAT does get attached to the internet. One of the biggest defenses that the Election Commission and the Supreme Court of India say that the EVMs of India cannot be hacked is because they are never, underline never, connected to the internet. That's not correct. The VVPAT does get connected to the internet when it downloads the symbols from the Election Commission website. So this is a vulnerable link. Let's acknowledge that. Why are we resisting it? All you need to do very simply is to place these two units, the VVPAT unit and the control unit, in parallel, not in sequence, in parallel with the ballot unit, so that when I press the ballot unit, my vote goes directly to the VVPAT, where I can see whether it's showing the candidate and the party that I've voted for, and my vote goes directly to the control unit. It does not go via the VVPAT. A simple tweak, a simple change. Why, I ask again, are we resisting this? So if we make these three resolutions, I believe in 2025 the Election Commission should be able to claim that the EVM mechanism of India is robust and transparent, and if problems get thrown up, then we should be open-minded to accept that this process needs to be changed. I think these three resolutions will go a long way. Now we come to the next three resolutions. That's resolutions 4, 5 and 6, and these I think should be made by our judiciary so that they can reclaim their unimpeachable reputation. So here's resolution number 4. Our judiciary should say that we resolve to very quickly adjudicate the challenge to the Places of Worship Act. Why do I say that? Because by keeping this challenge open, a large number of very mischievous lawsuits are being done all across the country. It's important for the judiciary to give a clear order, clear judgment, so that that mischief can be eliminated, can be controlled. And I think the judiciary must acknowledge that this time we will not make a mistake of delaying a judgment so much that it becomes infructuous. You know, that was done in the case of Article 370. That was rescinded, abrogated in 2019, but the Supreme Court took up the case only several years later, which meant that the order literally became infructuous. And I think the judiciary must also acknowledge that we are not going to do what we did in the Ayodhya order. We are not going to try and foist a political settlement. That's not the job of the judiciary. We are going to take a decision based on the principles of jurisprudence. Once our judiciary resolves that, I think this would go a long way in settling the whole mischief that's happening around the Places of Worship Act. I think the second resolution for the judiciary, and that's the fifth resolution for India, is that we resolve that these twin bail conditions, the two twin bail conditions in the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA, now these are being subject to a lot of abuse. I'll tell you what they are. So what the twin bail condition says, that I, who am an accused, the burden of proof of innocence is on me. That's wrong jurisprudence. The burden of proof has to be on the one who is accusing me, on the prosecutor. But it says the burden of proof of innocence is on me. I don't even know what I'm being charged about. I do not get to see the charge sheet. I do not get to see the ECIR. How can I then defend myself? How can the burden of proof be on me? And the second part of that condition is that the judge has to be prima facie convinced that I will not commit the crime. Now I don't understand this. The trial has not taken place. I have not been convicted of the crime. How am I then expected to convince the judge that I have not committed a crime that I have not been convicted of committing? You see the absurdity of these twin bail conditions, that you are asking me to prove to the judge that I am not guilty of a crime that I have not been convicted about. So really it's an absurdity. I'm laughing at the absurdity. This must go away, and our judges and our judiciary must acknowledge that this provision has actually been very merrily misused by several governments to curtail the liberty of citizens whose fundamental right it is to be free. The sixth resolution for India and the third resolution for the judiciary is that we will resolve to hold truant courts completely accountable. What do I mean by that? You've all seen how the Supreme Court has been talking about why bulldozers cannot be used without the due process of law to destroy houses of the so-called accused people. The Supreme Court has been saying this is impermissible, yet in the lower courts and the districts, we are seeing repeated instances of this happening. But the Supreme Court has never called the offending officials or politicians and given them exemplary punishment. I think it's time that it is now resolved that any court which plays truant to the instructions of a superior court will be held accountable. Similarly, in the case of giving bail, we've seen that courts have been denying bail, not giving, have been denying bail on very flimsy and communal grounds. And this is despite the fact that the Supreme Court has consistently said that you cannot do that, that bail is the rule. But when it is being flouted, why are we not holding officials accountable who are flouting these orders of the Supreme Court? Similarly, we are seeing that the very harsh laws that are aimed at curtailing egregious offenses, terrorism, drug running, insurrection and violence on population scale, on a big scale. These are the kind of egregious offenses for which laws like the UAPA have been made. But we are seeing that these laws are being used against civil society activists, against people who are being called urban Naxals. Urban Naxal is a term that's not even defined in the law. It's about time that the Supreme Court really clamps down hard and says that these laws are meant for different crimes and are being misused, they are being weaponized. Likewise, we are seeing in how the PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, is being weaponized in the case of business people. I mean, the offenses of a business person may be cheating, maybe underreporting of taxes, maybe breach of trust, maybe willful default. These are not money laundering. These are charges that should be addressed under other laws, which are designed and appropriate for these offenses. But what we are seeing is that money laundering, which is really again a harsh law, which is to be used for egregious offenses, again like terrorism, like drug running, are being used for these other simpler business offenses. This is weaponization of the laws, and it's about time that we resolve, our judiciary resolves that we will not permit such a weaponization of the laws. So these are 6 resolutions, 3 for the Election Commission, 3 for the judiciary. I will now come to my 7th resolution, and this one is a simpler one. For we've seen so much abuse of custodial interrogation. We see every day or every other day we read about people who are tortured or people who are injured or people who sometimes die in police custody. There is a very effective fix for this abuse, and that is it should be mandated that in today's day and age of the cell phone, which records videos, almost everybody in this country has a cell phone. Certainly, most police officers in this country would have a cell phone. That every custodial interrogation in a police thana has to be video recorded. It has to become a rule. And we resolve that if someone flouts this, we will hand out exemplary punishment. That's one more resolution. The 8th resolution for my country to resuscitate its democracies. Have you noticed how dollar millionaires, that is people whose net worth is upwards of 8.5 crore rupees, that in the last 2 years, 10,000 dollar millionaires have given up their Indian citizenship and have moved away from the motherland. By moving away, they have not only given up the citizenship, they've taken tens of billions of dollars of wealth that rightfully should be belonging to India, that should be invested in India, but that has gone away. We must resolve to find out why this is happening. Why are they going away when India is supposed to be the most promising economy in the world? Is it because they are unable to live in the polluted air? They don't want to expose themselves and their children to the polluted air? Is it because they are facing persecution by tax agencies? Is it because they believe they will never get justice in our broken system? Is it because they face extortion and corruption by regulatory bodies? Is it because they feel that it's very, very difficult and there is a terrible unease of doing business in India? Whatever it is, we resolve that we will find out, we will fix this problem so that these people who are citizens of our motherland are not forced to leave the motherland. That's 8 resolutions, and now I'll come to my 9th one, which I think is the easiest at one level, and I think it's also the toughest at another level. Have you noticed how in our political discourse, all our political leaders today, they're always angry, they're always morose, they're always prickly, they're always ready to fight. Do you ever see anyone smiling? Do you ever see a jocular exchange? Do you ever see someone, being able to take a joke? I think it's very important in a democracy that political leaders, while they are ideological opponents, are also able to indulge in some good-natured, friendly banter. So I would say the 9th resolution for India: relax, guys. Learn to take a joke or two, because in a democracy it's extremely important to accommodate, to absorb, to forgive, and just generally be agreeable, to be able to, laugh at yourself. It's a good thing to do. With this, I end this Raghav's take, which is about the 9 resolutions that India's institutions need to make to ensure that our democracy is resuscitated.